Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our wrestling podcast. So, without further ado, the following podcast is scheduled for one fall, and today's topic, the legacy and tragedy of Chris Benoit.
Ladies and gentlemen, the following contest of Super Brawl 3, it is set for one fall with a 20-minute time limit. Introducing first, from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, he weighs 232 pounds, Chris Benoit.
Welcome to the O.W.P. This is our wrestling podcast. This is Dave along with Jess.
Hello.
And Cuz.
Hey, brother.
He's finally back, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. And now on to our topic today, the legacy and tragedy of Chris Benoit. As always, you can reach us via Instagram at O.W.P.2019, SoundCloud at Our Wrestling Podcast, YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, or just do the easy thing. Download the WrestlePost app at no charge to you and join us along with other great podcasts of the day. Hey, guys, what do you say? I know we got some stuff coming up. I know King of the Ring is hot and heavy, and it's some fun things. You know, we're 2-2 on the Shotmaster list. I know Jess is pissed about it. He thinks I'm cheating, whatever. But what do you guys say about that? What do you say about this episode we got coming up? It's going to be a tough one, but I think a lot of people don't explore it because they think it's taboo, but you also kind of diminish the career if you don't. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. What do you guys think?
Well, two things. One, you're going to fucking lose a tournament. I'm not worried about that. That's all I'm going to say about that. Number two,
we'll see.
Number two,
we'll see.
I'm not going to speak for you two. I'm going to let you guys speak for yourselves, but as far as excuse me,
I said, go ahead. Of course.
Like already, I don't even know why. He probably is just innocent right now, and I already want to be like, shut the fuck up, cuz. But I can't. I got to pull it back in. I got to calm myself.
Get ready for the vortex.
I don't no. See, I will not go in the vortex. That's the problem. Is like Dave will fall right in your fucking vortex and get sucked away. And I will when we're off mic and we talk politics. Then I get sucked right in the vortex. I'll be first to admit that. But here, no. I am calm. I am centered. I'm going to win the King of the Ring tournament, and we're talking about Chris Benoit.
Vortex.
No, I'm steering the ship right now. We're talking about Chris Benoit. No vortex. So
okay.
So I'm not going to speak for you two. I am going to speak for myself. Now, a lot of people say, well, you know, he should be put in the Hall of Fame for his body of work, or he should be talked about.
Bullshit.
No, I don't. The reason why we're doing this, or the reason why I am partaking in this, and again, I'm not going to speak for you guys, because it's a serious subject, it is yes, he influenced a lot of wrestlers. He's one of the main reasons why I started watching outside of the WWF when in like the early 90s to mid 90s and stuff. I really, and I'll get into it more as the episode goes on, I really like Chris Benoit. I loved his work. I loved the way he moved in the ring. I thought his wrestling was believable. It's everything that I like to watch as a fan. So I really enjoy Chris Benoit's work when it comes to that. But like I don't like the generic blanket of, well, we're going to celebrate his work. No, we're going to talk about his work just like we did Owen's work before what happened with him, just like we did Stone Cold's work before he retired, and Warrior and all that stuff. But we're going to talk about his ending. And whereas I was emotional about Owen, and you know, it was a sad note in the sense of Owen was such a great person and all that stuff. And I'm not saying Benoit wasn't a great person when he was alive and active and, you know, working and all that stuff, but it's going to end appropriately, at least on my part, because I'm not speaking for you guys, about the way it ended, you know, about the tragedy that happened with Benoit and his wife and his son. So people can call it a celebration. We're talking about his body of work, and then we're going to end at his end. right? Does that make any sense? Like, that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
we're not glorifying it. And you know, a lot of people think, oh, it's so taboo, because I did wrestle back and forth before I proposed that we talk about the subject. I was kind of up in the air, but then I stopped and thought, no, like a lot of his close friends like Benoit or Jericho and Chavo and all of them have done podcasts, either if it's their own podcast or they were a guest on another podcast. A lot of people have talked about it. The only people that don't talk about it are WWE, and they shouldn't have to, and they won't. And I understand why they don't. But a lot of people have covered him. So it's just the way you cover him kind of, you know, determines on if it's tasteful or distasteful. I'm not one of those, and again, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not one of those people that are just like, they ignore the fact, doesn't matter what happened in the end. He should be celebrated. No, I will not use that word celebrated, because I disagree with it. But go on. I don't want to ramble where I'm talking.
It's okay. Cuz, take it away, man.
I agree. I mean, I think it's just one of those, you could, we as hardcore wrestling fans, we could appreciate the work, but it's just one of those things that, man, I don't blame them for not putting him in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he should. It's one of those tough situations, man. Like, I don't even know what else you can say. Just pretty much said all of it as far as that goes.
And he'll never be in there, and we can just say that right now. There's no surprise at the end of this podcast that shit's not going to happen. And I'll tell you something else. I think I know it sounds really stupid because it doesn't even compare to the tragedies. But if you think about warlords and dictators, and the most recent one that comes to mind is World War II and things like Hitler. If you don't go back and look at these things, you don't remember history, you will repeat it. And I think talking about this stuff, I know it sounds stupid, but the more people talk about it, and like I said, in a tasteful way, hopefully WWE and other places that hold wrestling in their heart and really hold it as a business too, don't make the same mistakes. I mean, Benoit is a complete tragedy, him and his family, and they probably could have helped him if they had seen the signs sooner. So I think while WWE can't probably technically will never be held accountable to it, they'll never have to admit that. There's no way they're going to they're never going to make that mistake again, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that mistake is the minute someone's hurt or someone's concussed, these are things you can learn from. And, we're going to continue to talk about it because it's the right thing to do, just like how, helmets get changed, seatbelts get replaced because people die, people get hurt, and they realize, oh, we need to fix this. And that's what dialogue does. So that's what we're going to do. I mean, that's pretty simple, right? I mean, and if you think about it in that way and you keep it tasteful, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Hopefully people will enjoy it, and we'll get started. Unless you guys have something else you want to say, how's your coffee? Cuz Jesus,
it's fucking great. Actually has some liqueur in it this time.
Oh,
please
okay.
You, Dave. Huh?
No, it doesn't please
My
me.
ginger snapper.
Okay, fantastic. Good for you. I'm over here drinking water. So.
Why is that? Where's the gin? No gin, huh?
Yeah, no gin.
I'm actually out of gin. I got to go buy some more before we take shots next week.
Not even a beer?
So.
Yeah, you're going to need it, you motherfucker, huh?
I need a drink for this episode, Jesus.
Yeah, with you, because I need several drinks all the time. When you text me, I need drinks.
On this great Saturday night,
but I can't drink at work, so it's fine.
All right.
All right, here we go. So we're going to talk about Benoit's early life, and we're gonna push through some early wrestling career as well. For those of you that do not know, Chris Benoit is Canadian, if you couldn't tell by the last name. He was born in Montreal, Quebec, the son of Michael and Margaret Benoit. He grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. That's where he was billed throughout the bulk of his career when you have him coming down to the ring and they say, coming out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, right? During his childhood in Edmonton, he was really idolizing. He loved Tom Dynamite Kid Billington. He loved Bret Hart. And at 12 years old, he attended a local wrestling event. He's like, those guys stood above everyone else. So he wanted to emulate himself after Bret Hart, after Dynamite Kid. So obviously, where do you go to train? Does anybody remember where Benoit trains at before he gets started?
Chris Benoit, we're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, he trained in the WWE Power Plant. Everybody knows about that. WCW Power Plant.
Yeah. And NXT,
with
right?
Hugh Morris.
Yeah, he was in NXT.
Come on, man.
Life magazine called it the Harvard of professional wrestling. ABC's Good Morning America gave it a rave review. The WCW Power Plant will help you.
He trained at the Hart Family Dungeon.
What?
And obviously, Stu Hart gave him that education. He wanted to emulate Billington and Hart. He liked that style. And he even liked the physical appearance. I mean, he really emulated these guys. So he even adopted the sharpshooter throughout his career as well before he went to the what is it, the crossface, right?
The
crossface,
crippler crossface.
Crossface. Sorry, if I could enunciate, it'd be helpful. Anyways, we'll move on. Stampede Wrestling. He was there from 85 to 89, and he wrestled with the Stu Hart Foundation, right? You can see those similarities between Benoit and Billington. He adopted many of those moves, diving headbutts, snap suplex, which is, I can't think of too many people that have a better snap suplex than Benoit.
I agree.
Than Chris
Well,
Benoit.
and the funny thing is he was built just like Dynamite Kid was, even a little smaller, dare I say. But like that's it's so crazy about how he was drawn to Dynamite. It's like a lot of people when they learn a craft or whatever, they don't. Some people don't, or actors and actresses, just you have to watch yourself. And I don't know this to be a fact. I have no idea, but maybe he somehow watched himself a lot and realized like, oh, I move like the Dynamite Kid and I like his style, so I can emulate that. Like, it's just kind of crazy that he did like the Dynamite Kid. He watched it, but there's a lot of things I watch on TV and I can't emulate because I'm not either physically gifted like that or, I don't have the talent for that particular thing. But he knew by watching Dynamite specifically that that's the style he wanted to emulate. And he physically was able to pull it off. He was built just like him. So I don't know if he had that awareness. I think it's very interesting that he gravitated toward Dynamite Kid, rightfully so, because he was built that way, like I said. So it's just crazy that it just was a perfect fit. Like, he saw that style. He's like, sure, yep, that's me, and I'm going to do it. It really does speak to his talent, because we're going to talk about it more as the episode goes on. He's amazingly gifted.
I beat Kurt Hennig in Seattle last Wednesday. I almost murdered the guy, and now I've got the belt. I am the true champion. Nobody's going to take this belt away from the Dynamite Kid. No, Kurt Hennig wants a championship match.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And his first title was ever won. Obviously, it was the Stampede British Commonwealth Mid-Heavyweight Championship. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, nobody cares
on
about
March 18th, 1988 against Kama Singh. And he actually would win 4 international tag team and 3 more British Commonwealth titles. He had a lengthy feud with Johnny Smith, lasted over a year. And they would trade that British Commonwealth title back and forth. So Stampede closed its doors later in 89, and he got a recommendation to depart and actually attend New Japan Pro Wrestling. I know a lot of people love that. This was a completely different New Japan, to be honest. It's actually quite amazing.
The gentleman that actually recommended him was Bad News Brown to Japan.
That's right. Yeah, that is right. That's exactly who it was, of all people, right? I mean, yeah. Oh, he's good.
Well, to speak, I know again we have to pick this up, but
sure.
Another intelligent thing that he did was there's 2 types of wrestling like mindsets. You either love it, and back here in like the late 80s, you treated it like a sport. You wanted to protect that part of it. Or you understood the cartoon aspect of it and you wanted to kind of go to the American side, which at the time, WCW was trying, they were getting away. They'd already been bought by Turner, so they were getting away from the serious side of wrestling, because NWA, the Crockett promotion, and the NWA itself always hyped itself as like more stiffer style and real wrestling. It was like America's version of like New Japan. And WWF was completely cartoon and over the top and big characters and bubblegum and all this stuff, where in the late 80s, after Turner bought WCW, against their will, they ended up severing ties with the NWA and trying to copy WWF to make the monies. And so they just couldn't they were just in a state of flux, like they couldn't get it right. So Benoit knew what he liked, and he liked the art of professional wrestling. He liked the side of it and also he knew that if I go to the United States, even though WCW did kind of cater to normal size people, not normal size like muscular stature, but like 5'10", 5'11", those guys. You go to average. WWF, you're done in the late 80s, right? Hulk Hogan 6'7", even though Macho Man was like 6 foot, it's still decent size for a person, but he was like
He's
235,
wide and
240
fucking
pounds. Like, you had King Kong Bundy, the one man gang, Andre the Giant. You had all these big people, huge people in WWF.
400-pound guys, yeah.
They called it the land of the Giants for a reason in there. And then they did have people like Bret Hart, who even tried to bloat himself and get big and all that. But then those guys were always mid-card to bottom of the mid-card, the good wrestlers. Vince just used them to work and put over the big stars like Warrior and Hulk and Savage. I'm not saying Savage can't work, but you know what I mean. So like it just was Benoit again made another intelligent choice of like, I want to go to Japan because I love pro wrestling. He was trained in Stu Hart's dungeon. That whole family had it ingrained in them. Like, you learn this. It's an art form. Learn it. Learn how the ligaments tear, to not do it to someone in real life, but you got to learn and get stretched here so you can emulate that when you get on, the inside the squared circle. And so Benoit was super intelligent to go. He had nothing, holding him back. He didn't have a family or kids or anything like that at the time. So he just went to Japan and started honing his craft. And that seriously defines him to me as far as like his body of work, because that's who he was. It's like he always knew who he was physically. It's weird. It's really weird.
I think the snugness of New Japan, to put it mildly, is exactly what Benoit is, and that's what he rolled into. I mean, Benoit made everything believable up into every right hand, every move, every wear down hold. It looked like he was hurting anybody, and he was safe too. But he was snug. That's really kind of the term for it. And he debuted there in '86, and he actually debuted under his real name. But in '89, he started wearing a mask, assuming the name. Should I quiz you, or should I just tell you, because you're going to give me a bullshit name anyway?
Ask me the question properly before you get crazy.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Ask me the question, Dave. I'm going to be serious. We're dead serious right now.
So in '89, he started wearing a mask and assuming the name of what?
The Red Rooster, Chris Benoit. Go on.
The Pizzle Kizzle. Pegasus Kid.
The Pegasus Kid.
Oh, okay.
And numerous times he said he hated the mask, but he said it also became a part of him, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And while he was in New Japan, he really came into his own, as Jess talks about. I'm just going to keep going. Huh? And he had matches with some great people. We're talking about Jushin Thunder Liger,
IWGP title, baby.
We had Otani. We had El Samurai. We also had Black Tiger, which I'll just let you quiz it again. Who was Black Tiger?
Someone who's very racist, unless he was black. Let me tell you that right now. If he's not black, he's a racist son of a bitch.
He wasn't black, but he was Eddie Guerrero, for those of you that want to know. I really think that you guys should go back and ignore Jess and his bullshit, and then take a look at some of these matches with Benoit. He goes way back with Guerrero, by the way. I mean, they are so tight. That's why they were so close. I mean, they were working together even in the '89. So
the original Hollywood Hogan.
Yeah.
But why did someone else name Guerrero? I wonder. Like, just your Black Tiger. Like, why wouldn't he have been Brown Tiger? Sorry, I'm so immature. I'm immature.
I don't know,
Dave. I'm immature.
Anyway,
I would have been White Tiger. If it was me, I would have been White Tiger.
It's funny. Before we start recording these episodes, we got to blow through this, Dave. And they just fucking refused. In 1990, he won his first major championship, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, from Jushin Thunder Liger. And he eventually lost that title in November of '90.
Why would you let me talk about history? I don't understand it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You said we got to get through this. I'm just trying to get through it.
Oh, shit.
So when he won that championship and then he goes back, he actually reinvented himself as Wild Pegasus back, at that time. And he spent the next couple of years in Japan. He was winning the Best of Super Juniors, the tournaments there, I think twice in '93 and '95. He went on to win the inaugural Super J Cup tournament in '94, defeating Black Tiger. Is it Gato? And the Great Suzaki in the finals. He wrestled outside New Japan, and he competed in Mexico and Europe. He won a few regional championships there. He actually won the WWF Light Heavyweight Championship, and he held that title for over a year, having many 40-plus matches with Villano 3. I don't even know who that is. Who is that? You know who that is, Jess? Seriously?
Villano 3? I mean, I don't know who is under the mask, but I know who Villano 3 is.
Arturo Diaz Mendoza.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. Second generation wrestler, son of Luchador Ray Mendoza.
He was originally the Purple Tiger, just so you know.
Is that true?
No.
Or are you just fucking with us? Purple Haze.
Damn it.
You're such a dick.
It's just that, no, see, this is the dynamic that we have to have, is that I'm glad that you power through, because I need that. Because this shit, as important as it is, and just like Austin's Texas stuff.
We gotta get through it.
And Owen's Canadian stuff. Like, I know it's super important because the roots of someone is very important, but like, I don't know, I just get so bored. But
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's a lot of stuff. So that being said,
No, keep going. Don't listen to me. Keep going, Dave.
He spends a year in WCW. He actually came there in 1992, June of that year.
Yes. Now, I do have to interrupt you here on a serious note. Yeah, he was part of the television championship tournament that Paul Orndorff would ultimately win. Other people that were in that tournament was a very young Rob Van Dam was also in that tournament. Just to name someone, to throw a name out there, huh? But this is when I first saw him because I was watching WCW. What are you
talking
saying?
about 92, right?
Yeah, 92 and 93. He popped up in WCW basically to be a part of the television tournament, which I want to say, I can't remember the exact date when Orndorff won it, but I think Orndorff won it like mid 93. So he came in there, he was doing some like WCW TV tapings and stuff. He was put in that big tournament. It was a decent tournament that lasted like a month or so for the TV title. And Benoit was a part of it, and that's when I first saw him because I'd never seen him before. And I was just like, dude, who's this guy? I was immediately attracted to like his work rate and the way he moved in there. And he did remind me of Dynamite Kid, but I was just more of like, this guy's really good. You could just tell. And this is from my age where I was like, the sophomore, junior in high school, where I was getting to understand, like, I like good workers. I like certain way people fall. Like, I didn't really know what work rate was yet, because I was still kind of young and I was getting it. But at the same time, like, I knew when someone fell good and reacted good and sold good, that clicked with me. And Benoit was one of those guys that I got in there and I watched his offense and I was like, this guy's really good. So that, as a fan, I started tape trading. And that's when I started getting tapes from Japan to watch him as Wild Pegasus and stuff like that. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this is where I first saw him, and I was like, God damn it, this guy's good. And I knew he was small, and I didn't care. Yeah. I just wanted to watch him. He was that good.
Yeah, he was that good, and he is that good. And in all that time frame, he was actually still technically part of New Japan for that time frame. He like you said, just you hit it on the head. He kind of rolls in and rolls out. And rolls back to Japan, but he had some matches with Too Cold Scorpio.
Those were excellent.
Took it all the way to the 20-minute time limit. He formed a tag team with Bobby Eaton. He and Eaton lost to Scorpio and Bagwell at Slamboree, but after that happened, he just went back to Japan. So
he got in the Super Bowl 3 match
too, Jess.
In the Super Bowl 3 match, he got pinned by Scorpio with like 5 seconds left in the match. It was really cool.
Yeah, it says 3 here. It's like 3 or 5.
Yeah, you thought it was going to go to a draw, and then Scorpio ended up whipping him over and getting him in a cradle.
In the countdown. He was trying to German suplex. He counted it. 1, 2, 3. What happened? He got it.
And there was another one. I want to say it was the tag match that you just talked about. Him and Bobby Eaton against Scorpio and Bagwell, which was a really good match. I just remember the ending.
There was the tag team championship. They were defeated by Pillman and Jushin Thunder.
No, this is the one at Slamboree 93. At Slamboree 93, it was Benoit and Eaton against Too Cold and Bagwell. Yeah. And the finish.
Yeah, there's that too.
Right. I don't know. This sticks out to me the most. This Too Cold, besides saving people from getting stabbed in a hallway in England, jumped off the top rope and he did a flip. Like, he jumped off the top rope and did a flip into a fucking leg drop on his prone opponent. And Benoit happened to be his prone opponent on this one. And his ass landed right on Benoit's fucking face, if you go back and watch that. So it was just showed how tough Benoit was, but I have this vivid memory of that. I don't know why. I had to interrupt you for that, because there's one of my memories of Benoit where it was a good match and I was in Too Cold Scorpio just sat on his fucking face. It's pretty gnarly. Like,
he just overextended on it, huh?
He did the flip, but instead of landing with landing a leg drop with the guy's neck, like right where your knee bends, he fucking sat on his fucking face. Like, that was great.
That's ridiculous.
Too Cold Scorpio.
I don't know why that reminds me of when Booker T did it to Big Show and pinned him like 20 seconds when he was on his way up to fighting Triple H. I think they were kind of pushing him.
Oh yeah,
he did that same little flip off the leg flip. Yeah, kind of crazy. You just don't see that very often. You would think more people would do it too. It's kind of a cool move, but haven't seen it in a while.
If you do it wrong, you almost murder motherfuckers, huh? Yeah, pun intended.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. All right. Well, that takes us into 94, because we talked about he went back to Japan, but then it wasn't for very long. In the middle of all that, because he's kind of blending, right? He's working multiple places. So that's where it starts ECW in 94. He does that in between the Japan tours. And he was booked as a dominant wrestler there because, quite frankly, there wasn't a lot of huge people in ECW. He's probably one of the biggest guys, So he's getting notoriety as the crippler Chris Benoit at this point. He competed in a one-night 8-man tournament for the vacant NWA World Heavyweight Championship, but he lost once again to Too Cold Scorpio. These guys just had incredible matches. And on November to Remember, Benoit, just a little side note, accidentally broke Sabu's neck within opening seconds of the match. He threw Sabu with the intention as he takes the face-first pancake bump, but Sabu attempted to turn midair and take a back bump instead. He did not achieve full rotation and landed almost directly on his neck. I find that interesting. They say that Benoit broke his neck, but Sabu broke his own goddamn neck.
Can I, this is going to get off topic here, whatever, but like, I was on Facebook and I'm, not friends, but part of like these different wrestling groups, that some have a couple thousand people in it. And one of the topics was, who did you just see for the first time or you heard of someone hype? And you just watch him and you're like, I don't get it. I just don't like him at all. And Sabu was my answer because I know he was a big staple of ECW and everyone talked about him in magazines and stuff. And he was like one of the indie darlings in the mid 90s and stuff. And I get it, but God damn it. He botched all the time. He was an awful wrestler. He was mega dangerous. The reason why people forget about a lot of shit he did was because he would equally try to kill himself. So that kind of balanced it out. Like he had no fear, like in the sense of he would not do something or make you do something that he wouldn't do. It just turns out that he would literally jump off of, fucking
he would do
300-foot building. He would backyard wrestle. So like, Sabu had no form, no actual technical prowess, nothing like that. So you get someone like this technically sound like Benoit in there who works stiff or whatever. And then you have this wiggly shit like Sabu that just wants to wiggle and do shit awkward. And Dave said it perfect. He broke his own fucking neck because I never got Sabu. He's not a good wrestler. He never was. He just likes flipping through shit and landing on his head. And
he's just
so you're like, well, when you're a danger to yourself, you're a danger. To the person
and nobody got that. I got that about Sabu right away. Going like, he's not fun to watch because he's dangerous, like in a bad way. He's dangerous, like to where I'm like, you're gonna fuck someone up like really bad. Like this is a dance. It is. I know people hate it described that way, but it is, and you got to co-op with your partner, and you can make it look snug and stiff or whatever, like New Japan style. But at the same time, like you also have to understand what's happening, what's the end result, meaning what bump do you have to land to complete this move. And Sabu just didn't give a shit. And like, so I'm not saying he blamed Benoit. He probably just laughed afterwards, and said, "Oh, you got me good."
He didn't blame Benoit, but Benoit blamed himself.
Of course, because Benoit was a professional.
It's not his fault.
Benoit was a professional. That's why. Like he was a professional.
Yeah, because Benoit really felt like he hurt him, and Benoit didn't hurt him. He did lay the move out that hurt him.
He was just in there with the king of all botches.
Oh my God! Did you see him land on his head? I think he broke his neck. Pulling dangerously and 911 attending to Sabu.
Yeah, and that's not his fault. But still, Benoit felt responsible. But instead of Heyman going, "Hey man, it's all right," Heyman's like, "Look, we're gonna take this and run with it, and we're gonna call you Crippler Benoit." And that's what he
the Crippler.
Yeah, and that's what he came through. When he returned to WCW, he actually modified his name to the Canadian Crippler Chris Benoit. So he took that and ran with it eventually. He said, and Heyman actually said in his book, he planned on using Benoit as a dominant heel for a long time before putting the ECW title on him to be a long-term champion there. Benoit and Dean Malenko won the ECW tag team titles from Sabu and Taz in February of '95. That was actually Benoit's first American title, believe it or not. They were initiated into a triple threat stable led by Shane Douglas. This is just cool shit, man. I'm telling you, this is when ECW was at its peak. And that was a 3-man contingency. They held all 3 of the ECW championships at the time. Malenko also held the World TV title for ECW at that time. They eventually lost to Public Enemy that April at ECW's 3-Way Dance. Weird freaking pay-per-view names. And Benoit spent some time in ECW feuding with the Steiner brothers, rekindling the feud with Too Cold Scorpio. He was forced to leave ECW after his work visa expired, of all things.
Well, because Paulie
was supposed to renew
Paulie promised him to renew it and shit. And Paulie was a carny, and he was doing everything he could do. He robbed from Peter to pay Paul. That's how ECW lasted for so long. And I love Paul Heyman, and we all do. And he's got a great creative mind. But he was a fucking awful businessman, and he was awful at talent relations. He lied to everybody. Yeah. Like I said, he robbed from Peter to pay Paul. He promised Benoit, "I'm going to keep your visa up to date. Don't worry," and he didn't because he lied and didn't.
Only someone like Heyman could make someone's career by calling him the Crippler and then forget to renew his visa. So
and then fucking take him out of the actual promotion that actually.
You make him amazing, and then you make him have to leave at the
well,
same
ladies and gentlemen,
time.
that's Paul Heyman. That's the dark side of Paul Heyman. Nobody wants to talk about. They like to romanticize him and think that he's the savior, and he's not.
Nobody's perfect, And I mean, he was.
And I'm a Paul Heyman fan. I love his creative mind, but he's got to be watched like a fucking mental patient at all times.
But he should be creative. I mean, that should be his deal. Is creative. Someone should just let him run with that.
But it was good because he went back to New Japan where he always had a home at, and then
yes,
he actually WCW had a great relationship with New Japan, so he came over there, and they for all the fuck ups that WCW did as far as like talent was concerned in the sense of creative, they actually administratively when they wanted someone, they went out and got them. So somehow shit got worked out, and Benoit ended up back in WCW in '95, right after Nitro debuted shortly.
In Germany, France, the Middle East, and certainly in Japan, a man who is coming to where the competition is. And he's here because he knows one thing, like every athlete in our sport.
WCW, where the big boys play.
Like literally the same year he was back in, like within months, he was back in the US again, wrestling. So, and he went back to Japan as part of the talent exchange. He went back and forth. He was he represented the Super J Cup, that second stage. He defeated Lionheart, but he lost to Guido in the semifinals. And then basically he was approached by Ric Flair to become a member of the Reform Four Horsemen. We talked about this a little bit, but this was before the Mongo stuff, but he was actually alongside Flair, Arn Anderson, and Brian Pillman. God, that just sounds amazing. That whole
it all was, and I almost hate the fact that that we can't do a podcast for like 10 hours on some of his stuff, because you get into this part here in like 96 where he was in WCW, and that's when his personal life kind of starts blending in. He kind of meets Nancy, who was married to Kevin Sullivan at the time in real life. And so they start kind of having a romance, and then they sort of, Kevin Sullivan and Nancy are having marital problems. They end up separating, but Benoit's right there to console her. And then it just kind of, this real life soap opera played out behind the scene. It was all real. Kevin Sullivan found out that she was secretly dating Benoit, and that shit was bad and all that stuff. And Kevin Sullivan happened to be the booker at the time, which is not very good in the company that you work for when you sleep with that person's wife or try to steal her away.
Yeah, and it's funny because they wanted to keep kayfabe as close as possible, so they had to share hotel rooms. They had to hold hands in public. So kayfabe, they were really trying to keep it there, and it became not kayfabe.
And then he kayfabed his penis in her area, and then it's the ultimate. It's the ultimate character commitment. Why are you offended? Cuz I don't understand.
Well, I'm not offended. I think it's kind of funny.
I'm not.
I've been holding back, so that's why I'm like, okay, well, if we're gonna go, I mean,
so I'm just gonna blow my wad figuratively and literally.
I hate to sound like that guy, but if you had to, I mean, it sounds like a step up to me, bro. I mean, Kevin Sullivan's just pile of dog shit.
That would work. That would work perfect though. Like, if Kevin's all mad, he's like, "What?" I'd be like, "I was fucking fully in character. I was the crippler having sex with woman." Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would play. It wouldn't work. I'm not saying this would work. I'm just saying this would be my answer.
He worked like a big guy in the ring. That's why she left him.
Yeah.
She's like, "What the fuck are you doing? You're a midget. You should."
Well, like Benoit, like Benoit's Andre the Giant. She likes short people apparently.
Compared to Kevin Sullivan.
My thing of she's maybe what I'm.
What's funny is Benoit even says like they continued the feud on camera and stuff, and Benoit said he never took liberties on me for what I did.
No, this is actually the interesting thing. In a separate episode, I'll say what a pile of shit I thought Kevin Sullivan was in the ring. Behind the scenes, he was very creative and he was a good guy. I've never heard a negative thing about Kevin Sullivan, but I absolutely hate Kevin Sullivan as a pro wrestler. He's awful. Yeah. He's sloppy. He's terrible. And I got to stop right there because I'll fucking go off forever about him. I can't stand watching him in the ring.
Do it.
He's awful. He's terrible. But what he did that was right was they had a street fight in 96. I want to say it was Bash at the Beach 96 or Great American Bash. It might have been both. I don't remember. I think it was both. I think Great American Bash, they had it. They had a Falls Count Anywhere match, and it was phenomenal. And they went up the stairs of the arena. They fucking fought in the bathroom. Like, they did great. I mean, we see a lot of that stuff now, but this was like groundbreaking back here. And Kevin Sullivan completely played to Benoit's strengths, and they had an amazing match with each other. It put Benoit on the map because you didn't know he could really go like that. You knew that he was a great wrestler in the ring, but you saw that he was a tough as shit. But this is part of what makes Benoit so great, or did make him so great in my eyes as a performer, was he was super well-rounded. You should be able to professional wrestle in the ring and outside the ring. It's all professional wrestling. You just adapt to your surroundings, right? Like, and he understood how to do that. So some wrestlers can't. You say you're in a street fight, they're like, I don't know what to do. Like Austin, when he first heard he was in a submission match against Bret Hart at Mania 13, he was like, I don't have any submission holds. And then when him and Bret talked, he was like, oh, we're going to professional wrestle. I get it. Like, right? Like, you just take that surrounding and you professional wrestle around it. Like, I don't know. It sounds like an ignorant like statement I'm saying, but it's true. And so Benoit got it.
Sometimes people make it too complicated.
Yeah, Benoit got it just like Austin got it. And they went and they fucking tore the house down. And I want to say they rematched at Bash of the Beach 96 where it was like a tag match or something. I think it was like...
She said, nobody messes with me. Sullivan prone. Swan dive.
I don't want to see this.
Turn out the light. This party's over, brother. 2, 3. A great.
Well, there was a retirement match. At
retirement match. It wasn't a tag match. You're right. You're right. Mm-hmm. Like, wasn't Anderson in Benoit's corner or some shit? It was weird. It was all this stuff or whatever. Yeah. But then they had another good match.
That way Sullivan could focus on booking. That's where he was.
This put Benoit to me on the map in the U.S. because I was like, I liked him before, and I was like, now he's showing everybody that he's really fucking good. Like, he had no personality. Benoit had a real hard time with the promos, let's say. I don't think he ever mastered it. And I think that's the one thing, if we, as we go forward in this episode, that held him back, was that he just never had a character. He was given great nicknames like the Crippler and all that stuff, and he let his body language talk in the ring. He almost needed a manager, like a mouthpiece. It's weird. I'm not saying I have a suggestion or anything, but he had so many gifts except that one. So when people always bitched early on about
boring,
huh?
I said he was boring.
Mania 20 was definitely the biggest night of my career. The night I faced a world champion. The night I faced two of the greatest wrestlers in the entire history of this business. The night.
He was. No, I mean, his personality was. It's like every promo was like, in the ring tonight, Kevin Sullivan, I'm going to take you down and I'm going to cripple you. And I'm gonna beat you. And that was every single Benoit. And I loved Benoit. And I'm being honest.
Didn't have to say anything at all, Jess. Huh? Like Dean Malenko didn't have to say anything to anybody.
Well,
Dean
that's
Malenko
also
just came down, that was pissed off.
But that's why Dean Malenko and him Benoit ended up rising. I think Benoit was a major overachiever as we get going in his career. But
that's what I'm saying. Like that was probably the best way they could have handled him, was just don't let him say anything. Because when he would come down, he looked like he was going to kill somebody. Like he was pardon the expression there, but I mean he wow. He had that look on his face like it's going down.
We're going
right
there.
And,
we're going there. Right?
This is what's going to happen to you. And he didn't have to say anything. Just like Malenko never had to say anything. Malenko was as intimidating as hell when he walked down to the ring. And I think the only reason why Malenko probably didn't surpass Benoit is because his career ended sooner, So
Malenko was the same way.
I wasn't trying to make a pun. Benoit had that look.
Their presence was super strong. And then when Malenko would talk, he'd be like, Jeff Jarrett, we're going to wrestle and shit. Oh, fuck. Ah, damn it. Let's just go. And he would never he always swallowed his own tongue, Malenko.
Those guys should have never said anything. The more quiet they were, the better they were.
So anyway, so that's,
that's rare itself.
So we can move on in the sense of, and I'm not trying to cut anybody off. I'm just saying, I know we have to move on for time. But I mean, that was the major highlight of his WCW career, in the middle there in 96. Because the NWO was hot and all that was going, and he had to fight all that. And he was part of a second-rate horseman group. And not second-rate because of him, but because Flair was 90, Anderson was 92. And and then they had Mongo, and who knows what to do with him, huh? And so it's just kind of they didn't know what to do with Benoit. Archives. When the right people wanted to work with Benoit, shit was good. But Bischoff never really gave a fuck about Benoit. So it's I'm all about the NWO, kid. And he never, but some of the, over the years that he was with WCW, there would be big guys like DDP and, that would get over. Not because DDP was better physically than Benoit, but DDP would be like, dude, I want to work with Benoit. Booker T wanted to work with Benoit to learn from him. And I'm glad a lot of these bigger personalities that had a more natural gift of gab, like DDP, they selected him because they're like, dude, fucking put me in there with Benoit. He's good. So a lot of people always loved Benoit in the backstage, just like the bookers the lazy bookers, which WCW had a lot of the lazy bookers because it was all about Bischoff was all about hiring stars that were already made and bringing them in, and the NWO hit. So he's like, fuck, if you're not part of the NWO, I don't give a shit. Like, so he kind of just, Benoit sort of toiled back and forth. He had the respect of everyone in the locker room, but as far as booking was concerned, in the top tier of the booking, he was never thought of and never talked about because
he was at the top of the mid card, and that feud with Booker does that,
I really hate to say it, you get the NWO in there, the core 3 guys were 6'6", 6'7", and 7 feet tall, or like 6'11". Like, Jesus Christ, like, and then you get Benoit, who's shorter than Flair, and Flair's only like 5'11" or barely 6 foot. Yeah. And like, so it's like I get it, but when the cruiserweights were hot, they went toward Dean Malenko somehow fit in there. Mysterio fit in there. Guerrero was in there. Jericho was in there, but Benoit never really fit in that. Even though he was completely a cruiserweight, it was odd to me that they never put Benoit in there because his skill was so big and he was so talented. He wrestled like a heavyweight. He would fight anybody. It didn't matter. But for some odd reason, they never gave him that cruiserweight stardom there. And that eventually became a curse. If you were considered cruiserweight in WCW towards the end, especially, you were doomed. But I mean, like, it's weird that they never did that with Benoit. They could just never figure him out in WCW. They never knew he had bright spots, and then he would fade away and he would just kind of toil.
Yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning for as far as the work goes. It's one of my favorite. This is going to be the first one that we mentioned since we'll talk about his later career. But the best of 7, the TV title, like we talked about, Justin.
That's another bright spot. I loved it
with Booker T.
I loved it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite fucking.
That's what we were talking about. We didn't say best of 7, but that's really what it was. And even a part where Benoit forces himself to be disqualified, trying to win it the right way. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and he never won that title at that time either, which is interesting. He never got a hold of it. You know what I mean? So Booker won the final match and then went on to beat Finlay for the title afterwards.
It was on Thunder, wasn't it? Right? The final match, was it on Thunder?
It might have been. They could have been trying to push it there.
Yeah, but they say that's what elevated both their careers, them working together on that best of 7. And then he moves on to 99. He teams up with Dean Malenko, and he wins the WCW World Tag Team titles, defeating Kurt Hennig and Barry Windham. How cool is that? Talk about some
in the dying years, they really tried to keep, they tried to get Benoit. He was part of the Radicals and all that stuff, which was like Saturn and Shane Douglas and all the Malenko and Guerrero. They were trying to somehow put all these big workers together, and it just sucked because WCW, even when it had its shit together, it never was together. But especially when it was falling apart, it was like just fucking feast or famine. If you can get on TV, great. And like he clung to the people that he knew backstage, and it was unfortunate because like Benoit never really had a defining championship run ever. He was, TV champion like 3 times. He was WCW tag champions, like Dave just said. He was United States champion a couple times, and that was great. Yeah. But I never felt like they put the title on him and they're like, we're going to base the division around him, or we're going to, really push him. It never happened that way for him, unfortunately. And it's funny, it ended with him, I know you're going to get to it, Dave, but it ended with him winning the big prize, and it just ended as fast as it started.
Yeah. So before we get into that, I want to talk about the Revolution real quick. He wins that U.S.
Oh, that's right. It was called. They were Revolution before they're Radicals in WWF. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly right. So
my fault.
Malenko, Perry Saturn, Shane Douglas get together to form the Revolution. That's that heel stable of younger wrestlers. They felt slighted, and you could say that's real or kayfabe
because that's the way to push younger wrestlers. Make them the heels. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't get the fan. Don't use the fact that they've been held back for years and they're probably the most talented people in the room and make them faces so the fans would actually get behind them. Make them heels.
Becky Lynch.
Yep, that's the way you do it. That's the way you do it.
Because they tried to make Becky heel. That
Jesus
worked out really
Christ,
good,
like WCW.
So yeah, I mean it's kind of funny, and they do. They because of that they get a major stronghold of fans. They really do. People really
the hardcore fans like them, and the people that followed the quote unquote dirt sheets at the time. The internet was kind of becoming household, at that point, and people either traded dirt sheets before or started getting the early stages of the internet so they could go on there, and just people liked good workers. The hardcore wrestling fans that never wanted to go away, that liked the in-ring product, always liked them. So no matter what, when they bunched together, people were going to cheer them. But again, like when you're trying to get on that main stage and you're mainstream like WCW was, even in 99 as they were collapsing, they were still putting up good ratings, and they were still one of the 2 big US promotions, like heaven forbid you fucking put young guys in there that are the best workers. You push them as such as faces so the crowd will get behind them. But instead, Like, yeah, they just make them heels and there's nowhere to go. Because once you start cheering heels, what's the point of making them a heel again? And WCW, because they have no patience, would just be like, oh, they're getting cheered as heels. Fucking break them up. Fuck them. Don't resign them.
And what's funny, because of that, Shane Douglas, they form a little small storyline where Shane Douglas basically questions Benoit's heart, and Benoit turns face and moves away from Revolution. And he wins the TV title one more time, defeating Jeff Jarrett in a ladder match. I hear that one's pretty good as well. Go check it out. Benoit wrestled Bret Hart as a tribute to Owen Hart, who had recently died. We've talked about that in our archives as well. Hart actually defeated Benoit by submission, and they received a standing ovation and an embrace from the guest ring announcer, Harvey Rose.
He forces him into it, trying to cross the legs. He's going to try to put him in the sharpshooter. He got it. He got it. He got it.
Look at that ring positioning in the middle of the ring.
But he's not giving up. Benoit's not giving up. Yes, he is. He can only take so much.
It's over.
But all of that happening, Benoit was really unhappy working for WCW. One last attempt to keep him there. They actually put the vacant WCW title on him, as Jess was alluding to. He defeated Sid Vicious at Sold Out, but due to disagreements with management and protest the promotion of Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah, well, Kevin Sullivan was Booker again, and so that was the whole thing. Is like Bischoff got, suspended, and then Russo came in, and then Russo lasted like 3 months, and then they fucking shit on him too. So then Kevin Sullivan found himself back in charge in early 2000 WCW. So they didn't want to lose Benoit. They didn't want to lose Guerrero. They didn't want to lose those guys. So they're like, look, if we put the title on Benoit, what do you think? Are you going to stay? And they're like, well, it depends on how you treat us afterwards. Like, they're no dummies. Like, right? Like, they just because you put the title on me doesn't mean you're going to push me right and it's going to advance. It's going to help the company. You're going to sabotage my run. So he was always wary of Kevin Sullivan for good reason, I guess. And I'm not saying Kevin Sullivan earned it in the back. I've never heard that he was vindictive, but at the same time, like, Benoit was just paranoid. So he was like, because I'm with Woman or Nancy, you're still out to get me. You've always been out to get me. And let's put the title. But they shot it in a way where they knew that Benoit's contract was up, and or they were going to give him his release. One of the two. I don't remember. So basically, they made sure that Sid had his foot outside the ropes when Benoit made him tap from the crippler crossface at Sold Out 2000. So Benoit won the championship on the pay-per-view and was a recognized WCW heavyweight champion. But the next night, he decided to leave because he just felt he wasn't going to be treated right, and he didn't really want to stay. He didn't feel right about it. So they vacated the title, and Benoit's championship reign lasted like a day or two or something like that. It was nuts. Like, it was just...
Yeah, and some people, they're saying now it's not even recognized as lineage on WCW.com.
Well, of course.
It stinks.
He's going to the crossface. He's got the crossface on.
Pull back. Pull back.
He just tapped.
It's over.
He just tapped.
It's over. We got a new world champion, guys. Benoit wins it. Benoit wins it. Benoit wins it.
There it is.
Yeah, because they're dicks, so it's okay.
Well, they're not dicks. He murdered people.
Well, that's later. Benoit left the company the next day alongside with Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn. Like you said, forfeiting that title in the process. However, the WWF does recognize Benoit's title win, and it's still listed at WWE.com for the WCW title lineage. But anyway, he spent the next few weeks in Japan before finally heading to WWF, who has acknowledged that championship and presented him as a former world champion when they brought him over.
Well, old Stone Cold is going to have to take this one home and end it there for ya kids. Because that was part one of the legacy, a tragedy of Chris Benoit. Stay tuned for King of the Ring Picks Part 2. And next week, we will continue the legacy and tragedy of Chris Benoit with Part 2. This has been Our Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to Our Wrestling channel on YouTube. Follow us on SoundCloud at Our Wrestling Podcast and on Instagram at O.W.P 2019. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah.